Welcome, welcome. In honor of our Marine layer returning, I have put on my shades because my future's so bright. I gotta wear shades. Hey, Ikram! I put on my shades since our son is back in LA. Hey. Anyway, hello, everybody. So sorry. I was running a little bit behind because all week long I have been tired. I am so sorry. I have been tired. Let me take my shades off. So, anywho, and I can fix my dreads a little bit because I was trying to be funny. But anyway, have we got a show for you? You, you. Yes, let's get it started. All right, let's get it started. So let me put my spectacles on. This has been one of those weeks. I had an interesting week in my Uber. I didn't really do a lot of Ubering last week because I tried to, relax a little bit. But yesterday, I had a criminal type of situation where I hate putting this stuff out there because I know that things like this are far and few between, but somebody was basically trying to carjack me. So thankfully, I got him out of my Uber. But y'all, it's just a crazy world that we're living in. I had to report it to Uber, get the police involved. Just crazy. People are nuts. So, anywho, God bless the child who has his own, but I'm good. Okay, I'm good. Working on some other things, and hopefully, those will manifest soon. But basically, I don't like to bring my family or anything like that. I just work. Fix this. Inner self does not dwell on past. Well, thing will be all right. I'm not going to worry about it. But I'm sure Uber will get it handled and take care of those who need to be taken care of. So, it is what it is. I had to turn my air off. It was making a little too much noise. In between that and everything falling off my desk. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, sorry. I do a couple things. But anyway, so yeah, that was a very interesting situation going on in my Uber yesterday, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm good. I'm good. But I wanted to talk about the marine layer because, maybe you have in passing heard it. You hear me saying it. It's something that I've learned about by being a but basically, what creates our cloudiness. Like when we talk about how cloudy it is, or how it's dull, has not been out. The marine layer basically is in Los Angeles refers to kind of like a phenomenon where a dense layer of cool, moist air from the nearby Pacific Ocean moves basically inland. And so when that happens, it's often in the evenings and early mornings, but the layers basically a foggy type of consistency over the sky. And typically it forms along the coastline and it can extend basically several miles um, inland and affecting areas like Los Angeles and the surrounding regions. But the marine layer plays a significant role in our local climate. And basically, what happens is it helps regulate the temperature and it influences the weather conditions, but particularly in coastal areas of Southern California, so SoCal. So, the marine layer does not melt per se, but you hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, I guess it melted," or maybe it's melting. But that's kind of like it's the same. It's not used in the same way that solids would basically melt, but the term melt typically would be something that we use to refer to the process of the solid substance transitioning into like a liquid state because of the heat. Um, I the marine layer, but however, would consist of a layer of cool mist air rather than solid, and it forms when, like I was telling you before, when the humid air from the ocean is cooled as it encounters the air over the land, basically. So as the day progresses, we usually see it go away, but for a couple of months we didn't, and now it is it has been but it's believed that it has dissipated, and because of this, the moist air mixes with the warmer air, so it loses its distinct characteristics of thick and cloudy. So cool. um wow. So uh thank you so much, Ikram. Ikram was telling me that there's some things going on in his neck of the woods, and I hope everything's okay. We'll have to talk about it a little bit later. Oh my goodness. It's crazy. People are just losing their minds. And, that kind of helps me to segue into our topic today for on Wishes for the World. Now Wishes for the World, again, is our segment where we basically talk about but into this. Today, I wanted to talk about the topic of the homelessness here in LA. I mean, I a couple of things. First thing to kind of preamble this and set the stage is, homelessness. When we talk about how it generated, there's some things that are going to be happening by the end of this month that are probably going to escalate some homelessness here in LA, and that is that a lot of these corporate business owners who own apartment complexes, properties like housing, and they have had renters. So California is the only state that did not raise that COVID restriction up at the end of 21 and 22 like some of the other states did. So they're just about to relinquish that into this. Very interesting, because what that means is there are going to be a lot more people that are displaced, unfortunately. And it's amazing because just think, these people haven't paid rent for 2 and 3 years. I mean, I don't know. It all makes sense now. You know what I'm saying? Some people who floss and say that they live in here or live over here, they've been living there rent free because they haven't been paying their rent, taking advantage of the system. And it's just it's sad. It's so sad that people have been living scot free. And here I am, all of us, we out here hustling, trying to make our rent payments. But, it just goes to show you that there's some people that take advantage of the system. But yeah, I got a corporate, uh, uh, he gave me his title, but basically he owns a lot of corporate properties, and he's responsible for making sure rent gets paid and different things get done. So he told me that at the end of this month, California is finally lifting their mandate to where they cannot go after those tenants. They are now able to begin the process of getting them escalated out of their apartments, getting their money back if they can. But if they can't, evicting them. So there'll be openings in places that haven't had openings before. They may even go down a little bit, because rent control here in Los Angeles, we have what they call rent control. And rent control basically controls the amount of rent a property can charge for a whole year. And every year it can go up to as much as 10% once a year. So thankfully, I've been blessed, and many of us have been blessed. There were right. I know, right, Ikram? And it's not everywhere in the world, but yes, it's definitely here in LA. And LA makes a lot of concessions for their consumers because they I mean, I love them for that, but there are some things that I view differently in regard to this homelessness that we got going on here. But most recently, it's estimated that LA's population of people experiencing homelessness has actually superseded New York's, okay? And it's become the largest in the nation here in LA. And it's still growing with about 1 in 150 Angelinos, or 600 or 69,000 people experiencing homelessness. So about one in 100, about 1 in 150 Angelinos experiencing homelessness. Again, 69,000 people. Now, there's always debate. Is it by choice? Is it happening because the government did this? I mean, you hear people that come in. Sometimes I talk to behavioralists. Again, a lot of you know I have been in healthcare IT for years, and by choice, I have kind of moved over from one area and started doing the Ubering, but I'll probably move back into the area of healthcare IT. Point being is that I run into a lot of people and I have a lot of conversation with different people. Some are behavioralists, and behavioralists, how they work with the homelessness situation is because obviously, back in 2013, um, the homeless population started to increase because a lot of people were deemed as not they weren't harmless to themselves or to others, so they were released out of these the homeless the facilities that kept homeless people or people that had like a mental disorder. So because of that, you saw a lot of people coming out into society, unfortunately, around 2013. Then from there, you started seeing people who just made by choice. They just want to be out in the streets, or they don't want to have to pay rent. Or if the government comes and says, "Hey, Bob, we have a spot for you and your family," Bob doesn't want to conform to the rules that he has to conform to because he no longer can stay out as late as he wants. He can't do drugs. He can't drink. He has to be tested for illegal substances. So yeah, that's LA. But the main thing I want to tell you again, welcome for those of you joining on different platforms. As I can see you popping in, I want to welcome you, ladies and gents, just to another exciting episode of Dina Marie Live. And I'm your host, Dina Marie. And today we've had an important topic to discuss. Like I said, homelessness here in the Los Angeles area. And as we delve into this, I love using that word delve, but as we delve into this, the history and factors that conditions or that contribute to the unfortunate issue that we have here going on of the homelessness, it sheds light on the challenges that are faced by many of those without homes, and we even explore the potential solutions. So let's get it started. So anyway, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, in my opinion, I always say, well, why, LA has made it accessible for people to pick and choose where they want to live. Some people couch hop. They go from, they have so many friends they can spend the night here and spend the night there, but they can't live there, but they can spend the night. So they just couch hop from one friend to another. Anyway, with that being said, then you have the group of people who just, they get a tarp, and I think that they were given to them or given out or divvied out or whatever. And the people that decide to put their tarps up on Skid Row, which is around First Street, downtown LA, people come here when they get off the plane. That's what they want to go see. But anyway, people, they put their tent up and they basically make a house. And I've seen more and more creative people. And at some point, I don't know what is, constituted as a structure, because I've seen like boards where somebody makes a little shack that looks like an outhouse, like they used to have in the back in the day, and it's just posted up on the side of the highway. So I don't know if somebody's coming by to collect taxes or not. But again, it is crazy. You know, there are some of the housing that's provided by government, but as I mentioned, if they're homeless and to prevent them from bringing in illegal drugs and things of that nature, they get monitored and they get tested. And if they don't want to conform to that, then they won't be able to move into that government housing. So it's very unfortunate. But in the 70s, Los Angeles faced a significant increase in homelessness due to a variety of reasons. And some of these reasons was um, the like I talked about, the institutionalization of some of the levels of, well, they call them level ones, twos, threes, people that were either not a detriment to themselves or society. So once they concluded that these people wouldn't hurt somebody out on society or themselves, they went ahead and they released them out of those psychiatric areas. And so those patients were out. As mental health facilities closed down, what began to happen across, and that was in the 70s, and I was thinking it was in 2013, but actually it started in the 70s and it kind of expanded into the 2000s. But it closed down across the country, and many individuals with mental illnesses were found themselves without proper support and ended up on the streets. Like I said, they gave them funding like food stamps and a check and whatever else. But basically, they were put out of those facilities, or that maybe they no longer have family members living who could help them to find a way or provide housing for them. You know, so it's very, 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 unfortunate. But during this period, we witnessed a shift in policies as well, and the way things were approached with mental health was affected, and the intention was to provide community-based care, but unfortunately, the necessary resources that were needed and the infrastructure wasn't actually set up in such a way that it would support these individuals, and it wasn't significant enough to maintain what they needed. So many of them ended up homeless, as I mentioned, and unable to access the care that they needed. So the closure of the affordable housing units that ended up happening in these areas created this shift in the policy as well. But for the most part, these units, they also played a significant role in how things were developed in the urban communities. But projects began to get transformed into neighborhoods. So they went into low income housing, and they were demolished because it was creating a plethora of crime and all kinds of things. So because of that, these low income housings were demolished, and it made making a way for the basically commercial ventures and higher end housing. And so that's when you start seeing a lot of regentrification and areas being taken over by people that had money, because they were bound and determined to make a better area according to what they call a better area, but then it's pushing people out that couldn't afford it and or had some type of mental deficiency. But the scarcity of affordable housing options left so many people and their families vulnerable to homelessness. And so, Lord have mercy and God bless the child, because it's about to happen again here in LA. And that's one of the things LA has been afraid of. And that's the reason why they have kept that COVID mandate in effect for so long after COVID, because they are afraid of the influx of homelessness. Coupled with that, we talked about a couple of weeks ago the actual surge, or I want to say the rush at the border, where the Latino community coming from Tijuana was professing to rush the border so that they could come to California as well, and making more homeless people that would be coming in from different countries, even because they believe it to be the land, of course, of milk and honey. Well, it's not to say Mexico's not a beautiful place, but their government is a little bit different than ours. So unfortunately, it's creating this influx at the border as well. But there are other contributing factors to our homelessness here in LA. You know, it's an economic downturn in started in the 80s, and here we are in 2013, 2023, 50 years later, 53 years later from 80s, and we're back at where we were then, where we had some job losses and cutbacks and lack of affordable health care. um, but it's made it difficult for so many individuals just to maintain stable housing in their situation. But for the most part, unemployment rates basically soared in the 80s. They soared after and during COVID, and they're still kind of at a 50% ratio, if I'm not mistaken, or they might be a little bit lower, but not much. And unfortunately, have people finding themselves without housing. So the interesting thing to me is when we talk about things changing, the more they change, the more they stay the same, right? Isn't that right? It's like our government is supposed to be doing things to fix things, but unfortunately, it seems like they keep happening. And now a whole this is a whole nother topic. They're talking about how to impeach what's his name? Dang it. It seems like we change presidents, Biden, so often. They're trying to impeach him. They're talking about they done put Trump in jail. So, child, I can only imagine. But I did hear that, many people say that they setting up to get Bill Gates as president, and that's the reason why he had set up a farm where he believed we should get all of our food from. And in the food, they was going to put vaccines that we wouldn't have a choice but to be subject to it, because that will be the only place you could get your food. So, child, they got a lot of stuff going on. And what kills me is like, who the hell are these people, a government or not, to sit up here and take my ability of freedom away? Like, who are you to tell me what I got to do and can't do and should do? Like, I just don't get it. And if that's your answer to the crime and stuff like that, that's not how you do that. That's how you increase that. So, unfortunately, we got a lot going on and a lot to talk about as usual. But for the most part, the combination of economic hardships and limited social safeties, as well as, having that net there for us in security, or even the feeling of the ability to go out and make these things happen for yourself. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people lose confidence and they get to a point where they just feel, lost, and that they're unable to get further or succeed in life. And I wish all of you the best in just wellness in that. We get criminals because they feel somebody else is responsible for them not having something, or they want to take reciprocity on other people, and it just becomes a very, very sad state of affairs. So I just hope that, there are more positive people of us than negative people of us. So I'm very, very, very upset about that. But I started Wishes for the World over here on I Am Dina Marie. I am Dina Marie Live. But normally I am at one Dina Marie. So on our next segment, and I apologize for trending topics, I'm going to switch over to one Dina Marie. I just wanted to tell some of you guys that were looking over here to make sure you appear over there. One Dina Marie. So we're going to close out this segment of Wishes for the World and come back with our trending topics so that we can talk more about what's going on. But before we go on the Wishes for the World and the homelessness, one of my thoughts about the homelessness here in LA is there is so much desert land out in different cities that are maybe 2 hours outside of LA. And I just don't understand why the government just don't pick up and take all these homeless people out there and let them live in the desert. It's, to me, they'll have their own space, they'll have their own area, they can post their tents up, but this is a choice that they're choosing to make, is that they're just choosing to live out in the elements, that they should go out and they should live in the desert. you know. And if they don't want to live in the desert, then they would need to conform to the government restraints. But hey, I hope some of you government officials out there are listening, because this, I think, will be a great answer and get a lot of the homeless people moved out of the streets of LA. And if they want to live in LA and stay in LA because they're from LA, then they'll conform to the LA citizenshipness. Okay? All right. Well, this has been Dina Marie, your host, live and in charge at Dina Marie Live. I'll look for you on our next segment and the following 3 segments on my professional page of the number one, Dina Marie. See you in a moment.